Uncle Mark.
Oui.
You know, in spite of everything, sometimes I think the world isn't crazy enough. And that, we humans have such a proclivity to invent craziness where we don't need it. So with everything that's going on, I think we need some distraction with some pointless, maybe harmless, I'm hoping.
Yeah, crazy is to humanity what a bad boyfriend is, right? We just can't quit it.
Right?
Just can't get away from this fucking guy, right?
Well,
even if we want to.
Yeah, exactly. Which we don't. So there you go. Well, fellas, I'm going to take you on a roller coaster ride of I'm going to say of truth. Yeah. I'm going to expose you to some real truths about the universe.
That's all we do.
And I hope that you guys can keep up because this shit is legit.
All right.
First, I want to start by this. I'm going to send your mind back to the year 1987.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer was topping the charts.
Yeah.
Gorbachev introduced the ideas of glasnost and perestroika.
Good year.
Yeah. The world was in love with adorable serial rapist Bill Cosby. And Cher picked up a Best Actress Oscar for managing to chew even more scenery than Nicolas Cage in Moonstruck.
She bit his hand off.
But
true story.
That is a fact.
Yeah.
But none of these were important in the grand scheme of things. And I mean the grand scheme, like grand. What was important?
I don't think they were important in the petite scheme, but fair enough.
That may be fair. What was important in 1987, as you'll recall, was that all the wars of mankind stopped forever.
Yeah.
Remember that? It was amazing, right?
Sure.
And
I think the
how
people
did
of Nicaragua
that happen?
would differ with you, but
you
sure.
shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Because that was the year of the Harmonic Convergence, which, as we all remember, was an event in mid-August of that year coordinated by spiritual author Jose Arguelles, based on the calculations of Tony Shearer in his 1971 book, Lord of the Dawn, where he figured out correct interpretations of ancient Aztec calendar predictions.
Oh, no.
Dan, why are you rehashing this? Everyone knows this.
I know.
Yeah.
I just try. You got to lay the foundations, right? We got to all start on the same page. So, just to be clear about this, I'll quote a paragraph from Wikipedia just so that everybody can be sure to follow along. Quote, according to Shearer's interpretation of Aztec cosmology, the selected date marked the end of the 22 cycles of 52 years each, or 1,144 years in all. The 22 cycles were divided into 13 heaven cycles, which began in AD 843 and ended in 1519.
Because what divides into 22 better than 13?
Correct.
Yes.
When the 9 hell cycles began, ending 468 years later in 1987. The very beginning of the 9 hell cycles was precisely the day that Hernan Cortez landed in Mexico, April 22nd, 1519, coinciding with one read on the Aztec/Mayan calendar, the day sacred to Mesoamerican cultural hero Quetzalcoatl. The 9 hell cycles of 52 years each ended precisely on August 16th to 17th. I don't know how that's precisely.
One or the other.
In 1987.
Exactly one or the other.
So, boom. Is your mind blown?
It's something.
I love the idea that Cortez is on the calendar.
Yeah.
Right? And you could see these Aztecs back in 15 whatever it was going, it says here this guy Cortez is arriving. Should we be worried about this?
Do you guys know what this is? What's this little blip here in the 1519? Do you guys know what that is? I'm sure something good will happen. Yeah, anyway.
That year had a little Enye over it on their calendar that they didn't understand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. Even if your minds weren't blown, Jose Arguelles' mind was blown. And he organized a global day of meditation for peace centered in Sedona, Arizona.
Why not?
And that's a very important point. It had to be Sedona. Why? Well, we wouldn't have been able to achieve global peace without the vortexes, but I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's switch gears a bit. What would you say if I told you that a UFO hunter was scouring images of the ocean on Google Earth and discovered what appeared to be 2 pyramids in the water near the Bahamas, right in the region known as the dreaded Bermuda Triangle.
You're speaking my language, man.
Like, they really look like man-made pyramids. Well, one's a little wonky, but the other looks perfect. Basically Giza, but in the ocean.
Yeah.
I have seen that image, you guys. And I got to say, that image, presumably taken from a plane, is pretty convincing.
Mm.
There definitely seemed to be something that, from that exact angle, resembles a pyramid structure. And another structure next to it, from the same angle, doesn't. But if you could look at it,
is it a kind of mid?
There you go.
Yeah,
exactly. You
Close
catch
enough.
You catch it kind of squinty like.
Yeah,
you're golden.
Sort of mid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, current scientists will tell you, and I mean scientists will tell you, that this is not a, quote, meaningful discovery, and that it's just a picture of rocks on the ocean floor. But what if I told you that 10 to 13,000 years ago was the end of the last glacial period, and that before that, the sea levels were significantly lower than they are now, which means that there could have been ancient humans, or extra humans, cultures living far out in places that are now covered by the ocean? What if I told you that there were highly advanced civilizations building huge complex structures that are now lost to us because they're underwater? But Uncle Dan, you say, the Pyramid of Giza was built about 4,000 years ago. There's no way that people 13,000 years ago or more had technology to build megalithic structures. But are you sure? Isn't that just what they want you to believe?
Right.
Don't the scientists just need to protect the narrative that they've been pushing all this time? Isn't that what science is about? Staying locked into the same thinking and never altering regardless of proof? Ha!
Because reasons.
Because reasons. Money. It's
always money.
Follow the money.
Grants.
Exactly. So, hold that thought. Let's talk about ancient England, shall we?
Can we talk about ancient England?
Right?
Finally.
Look, let me introduce you to the work of English antiquarian Alfred Watkins. In the 1920s, he was driving in part of the Hereford countryside that he knew quite well, and he realized something. He could draw a straight line between several prominent historical structures. He took to survey maps and found that, sure enough, shit lined up, like, perfectly.
But that doesn't explain why he was so against Quarians.
Well,
yes.
You got to take a position one way or t'other.
Well, Doug, maybe he ends up pro-Quarian by the end.
Yeah, exactly. We don't
change
know.
your mind, Doug.
Here we go. So, there he is. He's looking at it. He pulls out some survey maps. Further research led him to write his 1929 book, The Old Straight Track, where he theorized that ancient Brits had a penchant for traveling in very straight lines, regardless of terrain, and that the structures were mark points to show the way.
Has he ever driven in British traffic? Because I don't think that's a thing.
No. Well, that's because you're not tuned into the ancients the way.
Oh, sure. That's probably
the way Watkins was. He called these tracks ley lines, from the Middle English ley or lee, meaning a tract of open ground or pasture. His theory actually gained some traction, and soon groups formed to hunt down ley lines all over England. In 1926, eager Watkins acolytes formed the Straight Track Club, and more ley lines were discovered.
I think I was in that for a while in high school.
So they kicked you out based on one of those words.
Yeah.
That's just what they call a running group in Utah County.
Yeah, exactly. Now, mind you, once again, the scientific community was too caught up in their narrow-minded view to see what was becoming more and more obvious. They raised trivial objections. They complained that a single ley line included structures from vastly different eras of history, and the fact that there are technically so many old structures on that damned island that almost any straight line is bound to cross several of them.
Yeah, totally.
But these intrepid line makers soldiered on. Well, that is until Watkins died in 1935, and then the Second World War kind of distracted everybody for a bit. It wasn't until the 1960s that things really picked up for ley lines. That, as you know, was a time of huge mumbo-jumbo. I mean spiritual awakening.
It was the great age of picking up what had been dropped long ago.
And what was rightly dropped.
Yeah.
And rebranding it. So people were finally seeing through the bullshit, man. They were seeing the truth of things. So ley lines got their second chance at fame when somebody realized that they weren't about topographically idiotic ancient trailways, but about the lines of mystical power.
Oh.
These are spiritual energy pathways and that the ancients understood, but became lost in our era of narrow-minded paying attention to facts. So now we finally understood that the Earth was crisscrossed by very powerful energy lines. But why? What do they do? Can we find a way to make them incredibly annoying?
The Earth is crossed by incredibly powerful lines. You just don't want to touch them because you'll explode. There's high-tension power lines everywhere.
That's true.
Yeah,
they even go under the ocean.
So wrong on you, Dan.
Well, let's keep talking because there's more to this than meets the eye. Pretty quickly after the idea started gaining traction, somebody figured it all out. These structures weren't there for humans to find their way. In 1961, a guy named Tony Webb published Skyways and Landmarks, a book in which he concluded that Watkins lines were markers for... Anyone?
Okay.
Aliens.
That's
Duh.
Yes.
Landing lights for aliens, right?
It's obvious when you think about it, right? Alien spacecraft would need to navigate the Earth somehow, and these lines of ancient castles and churches and stone circles and whatever were way better than using, I don't know, much larger and more prominent natural landmarks that could be seen from much higher up.
See, Dan, I don't know why you waste so much time with this, like all this filler. Why don't you just go crazy old Brit, 1960s, aliens, Jews. Done. We can do this whole thing in 30 seconds.
You just drew a ley line.
I sure did.
I love the idea that aliens traveling from, even the nearest star can navigate the light years of time and
emptiness.
space.
Yeah.
But that last quarter mile is just a mystery to them.
It's just like, fuck, I'm lost.
Yeah.
Where is Islington? Anyway,
that's on the town sign.
It's not just about aliens. I mean, it's definitely about aliens, but it's not just about aliens, right? Because what about the energy? And this can't just be about England, right? Other places need to feel special too. So people started to look at the bigger picture. They started to draw lines between the amazing structures of the ancient world. Ones that were probably built by aliens, but because there weren't any, white people around at the time. And get this. Everything lined up perfectly.
Yeah.
And this is a fact. If you draw a line, for example, from the Great Pyramid of Giza all the way around the world to the Mayan pyramid at Chichen Itza, and I did this, that line passes directly through a part of Spain that's only 600 miles south of Stonehenge. Coincidence? I think not.
That is the nearest near miss ever.
Right?
Like that, because that's only like 599.6 miles south of the parking lot at Stonehenge.
Boom.
You know what I mean?
It's if your mind's not blown by now, I don't know what's going on. So, What about this? Here's another good one. If you start on an island off the coast of Ireland and draw a line to Mount Carmel, Israel, you'll cross 7 prominent churches or structures named after St. Michael. That includes the stunning St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall, the gorgeous Mont Saint-Michel in France, and a whole bunch of other places that you haven't heard of. And it's known as St. Michael's sword, and I've seen several maps of this, and it's actually pretty amazing. The line is perfectly straight.
Wow.
Now, of course, there are doubters who say that maps are drawn by humans and that the ones that I saw were all really highly fudged and that the sites are anywhere from 14 to 42 kilometers off of the true line. But hey!
Wait.
That's pretty
14
close.
and 42?
Whoa.
Hold up.
Whoa, did you guys catch it? 14, 42. That's got, both of those have a 4 in a different position.
And 2 follows 1.
2 follows.
Shit.
Look, you guys, you can't make this stuff up. This is as legit as it gets. Anyway, and also...
Add it up, it's 9, and that's German for no.
Boom!
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, this St. Michael's line, you don't have to worry about the fact that Europe is positively littered with churches dedicated to Michael, but just look at the line. It's amazing.
Michael was a crowd favorite.
Right, absolutely. There's another St. Michael's line, actually, that's just in England, going kind of in the opposite direction. That's like follows the path of the sun on St. Michael's Day, and it has a whole bunch of things along it too, a whole bunch of points along that line. So, man, it's kind of hard to dispute it when you see it. But what does all this have to do with underwater pyramids and celebrations of Aztec predicted peace in Arizona? Ley lines, man. Energy. Don't you get it yet? Look, the ancients were much more attuned to the Earth's energy than we are. Which ancients? All of the ancients. Everywhere. From every period. So they knew where the shit was flowing. You know, they knew it hardcore. And they knew that sometimes those energy lines would get too intense. So they would build these things to balance the energy out.
Oh.
Maybe that was a pyramid. I mean,
so a pyramid is like a giant resistor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
or
it
a conductor, or exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because we've talked about how powerful those shits are.
Yeah.
You know, with their power and all.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a circle of giant rocks. Obvious when you think about it.
Yeah.
For fixing or maybe enhancing energy, you know, from the earth.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe it's a bunch of enormous sculptures of heads on an island somewhere. How else do you explain all those things?
That's really the only explanation.
Come on.
Yeah.
Which brings me to Sedona. Set into an Arizona landscape so beautiful that you can't help but feel awestruck. Except you're not. It's not awe that you're feeling. It's vortexes. Because Sedona, Arizona is a place where the Earth's powerful energy ley lines converge. But Uncle Dan, you might ask, or you might demand, or you might say, the plural of vortex is vortices. But you shut your whore mouth. In Sedona, they're vortexes and they're beautiful. So now,
Dan,
yes?
what are they in Texas?
All my vortexes lie
in Texas,
Arizona,
and that's why all your vortices are in Tennessee's. They teach you that in school so you can keep it straight. It's one of those mnemonics, right?
They're helpful devices. They really are. So now, if you go to any of a number of places in and around Sedona, including Airport Mesa, Cathedral Rock, Bell Rock, Boynton Canyon, you're likely to see incredibly sincere, barefoot people standing with their arms outstretched, eyes closed, just soaking up that sweet, sweet energy from the earth that's totally there.
Yeah. It's not the blazing hot Arizona sun above them that they're feeling.
Right, yeah, exactly. They're not sun-stroked and feeling like they're ready to pass. They're not lightheaded.
I got a vortices burn.
That's right. You can get it. Because let me tell you something. There are 3 types of vortexes. So apparently the energy that we're talking about is electromagnetic. And as long as you don't know anything about electromagnetism, you'll be fine with these distinctions. The magnetic vortexes have a feminine or yin energy, which means that they are very nurturing and soft. Stay with me.
When I think of a vortex, I think nurture.
What you want is to be hugged by your vortex.
Yeah. Well, you will be eventually as it crushes you.
Yeah.
Sure.
The electrical vortexes, on the other hand, have a masculine or yang energy, and they're very energizing, and they help with increased stamina and power. And then there's a third kind, which is the balanced vortexes that have both kinds of energy, so they, balance you.
They're non-binary, which is cool. Great.
Which is great. Yes, yeah. Exactly. So what's great about these being electromagnetic in nature is that we can totally test for that. We can prove that ley lines exist. I mean, not with, scientific instruments designed to register electromagnetic fields. That doesn't work. Although, this one guy that I heard about totally took his compass to a vortex, and it went crazy. So, there's that. Sure. But you can test for it with things like dowsing rods and pendulums and crystals. Basically anything that has the word spiritual attached to it should be fine.
Yeah.
And there you go. Ask your friend Brenda and her boyfriend River about it. It's totally true.
I love River.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like hanging out with him at parties, but he's if he's not stoned,
he always brings his guitar, and it's just like,
got
dude.
Good weed.
He does have good weed.
Does have good weed. It's funny. I smiled the other night when you told me you were doing this story, Dan, and I was watching the first Hellboy movie.
Oh,
and I love those movies, especially the first two. The third one I didn't think was kind of had the zazz.
Right.
It didn't have Ron Perlman, but when they were when Rasputin was getting ready to summon the void or whatever, and they were on that little Scottish island, the young version of the doctor guy was talking about how it's on a ley line.
Right.
And I just had a little smile. I'm like, oh, stupid and dumb and wonderful and fun.
It's funny because while I kind of, one of the things that I kind of got lost in while I was researching this was that I discovered how I could on Google Maps, on Google Earth, I could draw direct lines from place to place.
Uh-huh.
And so I decided I would create my own ley line and just see what would happen. So I literally I started at the Pyramid of Giza and then took it all the way to Sedona, Arizona, just to see what was on that line.
Graceland.
No, but I will actually. I'm going to walk you through it. I wasn't planning on it, but I'm going to walk you through it. Here we go. It crosses directly over the Paleo Castro Monastery on the island of Mykonos. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Then the Ozren Monastery in Bosnia and Herzegovina, so they're amazing.
That's a favorite.
Really close pass by the Bayreuth Festspielhaus in Germany. That's the opera house designed by Wagner himself.
There you go.
Straight over the Magdalena Kirche in Weissenfeld by Coburg in Bavaria.
That's a vortex all its own.
Right, exactly. Directly over the Dunotter Castle in Scotland.
Yeah.
Then it cuts off a tail of Greenland, but there's nothing there, so, just Greenland. Then directly over Resolution Island in Canada that also has nothing on it. Cuts a couple of giant swaths out of Ontario and Manitoba and manages to miss anything important at all, which was kind of funny. And then...
There's literally nothing important in Manitoba, so the ley line is obviously a lie.
Right, exactly. And then it goes almost directly over Mount Rushmore, which I thought was amazing.
That's funny.
So there you go.
Well, I think you've proved the point.
I've proved it. What's really funny and what hippies will hate is that it misses the Crazy Horse Monument by over 5 miles. So it hits Mount Rushmore it's within a mile of Mount Rushmore.
Based on ley line proximities, 5 miles is a direct hit.
Right. Well, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, that's good. Now I know this, and I'm going to go huff nitrogen oxide until I forget it. So
yeah. I think that is fair.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go consult my crystal, and we can move on.